Hi, this is Cheryl back with you from Farmhouse Frugally, and I had found a couple very basic things on the good table at my dump that I think you are easily able to get your hands on. Either you have them already, or you could probably pick them up real cheap at a yard sale or a thrift shop. And I'm going to use this sweet mold, silicone mold, and I'm going to use some air dry clay. I got that at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to roll that out and press that in and get that out of the silicone mold because I like to embellish this first. Now you can use any kind of mold, any design that your heart desires. And if you don't have a mold, but you have a stamp on the clay and cut it out with a knife. That works well too. And then you can use wood glue, or you can even use school glue, because we are going to attach this to a recipe box. I find them a dime a dozen, and I think if you don't already have one, you probably could pick one up very inexpensively. So once that is on the box and the glue has dried, I am just going to go ahead and paint the entire thing. Now, I don't mind the brown color, it's fine, but I want to update this and make this feel just a little bit more spring and match my decor. And I do need to give this 2 coats. That's fully dry, then I am going to take out some sweet little forget-me-nots. I think they are little blue florals that I happen to have in my stash. I think I got on Amazon, but certainly you can use anything that you have. If you do not want to add color, if you want to keep it real plain, or you really like coastal or shabby, you could just white wax over this whole thing and keep it real light colored. But I like things to be just a little bit more on the vintage side, so I am going to go ahead and just add a couple of florals. And I'm also going to add one of the poems from the IOD transfer called Lover of Flowers. And I am going to use one of those poems because it is called Forget Me Not. Probably seen this 1,000 times, but if not, you want to lay that down. You want to rub that on with a stick or a popsicle stick or whatever you have, and then you want to just peel the top off and then rub it down or burnish it with the plastic that you peeled off. The key really is not any of that. The key is let your paint dry really well before you do this stage. So 2 days, optimal, if you are patient enough to do that. Now, once I have the transfers down and I have burnished them, then I like to distress. This is the vintage feel for me. I like the brown that's underneath. I don't mind some of that showing. In fact, I kind of like that showing. So I am going to go ahead and I am just going to distress here and there. And then I am going to add some wax. I didn't bother painting the bottom, but I did notice it is a Ray Dunn when I flipped it over. So now I am going to go ahead and I am going to wax the entire thing, since this paint I want to seal in, but mostly because I want to seal in the transfers. Just going to add some clear wax to that, wipe that back, and then I'm going to take a little bit of the antiquing wax. I don't want this to be crazy distressed. I just want to add a little bit of that distressed look here and there, especially on the corners. But I think that has really elevated this from a very 50s, very 60s look to updated, sweet. You can certainly store whatever you want in that. I decided that I am actually going to put some pretty recipe card papers that I had in my stash with this, just so that if and when I ever do write a recipe down for somebody, which sometimes people do ask for a recipe, I will have these pretty papers in this box. So I would love to know if you have a recipe box hanging around your house and how you are going to update yours. Now that is taking me on to my second item, which you may not have this exact basket. I found this and I thought this was absolutely spectacular. Dirty, I had to clean it up real good, but I love it. It has a cute little clip. It has a handle. I actually don't even mind the color, but this wouldn't be a DIY if I left it alone. So I watered down a robin's egg blue color that I had mixed up a while ago that has a bit more green in it, and I just absolutely love this look. But this is a very watered down paint. I want this more of a wash. I am not painting this so much as kind of trying to put a wash on it. I almost want it to look like that copper patina that you see, and have it just really have that aged blue-green color. I just love that color. Really, I'm not going to touch the interior. I am just going to wash over this top and sides. And then once I decide to, afterwards, I wasn't going to do the handle, but I didn't love the contrast, so I actually do decide to go ahead and paint the handle as well. And then once I have this, it didn't take as well as I wanted. I had to go back and paint a few spots. Even though I had cleaned it, there might have been some residue from heaven knows what on it. So it did kind of take almost 2 of these washes. And I can always pull back some of that paint later on if I feel like it's just a little too much paint. And then once I get this completely dry, I am, of course, going to wax it. Now, this is a chalk paint, so I wanted to make sure it was really dry so that when I use my watered down antiquing wax, it doesn't lift that very easily. So I really quickly almost dry brush, I get it wet, but I'm using like a chippy brush on here, and I just real quickly sort of light-handedly run over the entire basket with this watered down antiquing wax. And then I just blot a little here and there with a paper towel. I am not trying to pull back. I actually want a lot of this deep vintage feel to this. Like this has been a basket hanging around for 100 years, touched a lot, in your pantry, whatever, and it just really has gotten wear and tear on it. That's the look that I'm going for. Now, once this is dry, I am just going to display it very simply with some florals and some fabric and a couple of wooden spindles that I have, and I think this has so much potential. So let me know what you think about that. And that takes me on to item number 3. And this, in my opinion, is quite ugly, but sorry if you like it. Again, good table at the dump. This time I want to have a black base coat underneath the blue. So 1 coat fully dried, and then 2 coats of the blue color on top of that. Now, this can, if you like the distressed look, is a place where you can use the Vaseline trick. If you haven't seen that, you just use some petroleum jelly Vaseline. You just take it on your finger and rub it here and there, maybe on the edges or in the places that you think might have distressed, and then paint the blue over it. And then when that's fully dry, you can take like a rag or even a sandpaper, and you can pull back some of the blue paint on top, and that will kind of chip off almost and leave you with the black showing through. Now, rather than doing that trick, this time I am going to use a baby wipe. And after I have the 2 coats of blue on there and dry, 99% dry, not 100% dry here, but I am going to use that and pull back. The problem with pulling back with the wet distress method when you're using a chalk paint is both the black and the blue here are chalk, so they can get a little cloudy. So if you know you want a wet distress and you have a black latex paint or spray paint, that is actually a better option, using that on the bottom layer. That way you can take as much of the blue color off with your rag without actually making the black paint muddy. It would stay perfect. But I didn't have any black, so I'm kind of stuck here with a little bit of that muddy look. But I think in the end, since I'm again going to add a black wax this time over this, that it came out good. Once I have that distressed the way I want, I simply mixed a couple drops of black paint with clear wax to make my own black wax. And then I am going to cover here and there, and I am going to rub that in, and then I am going to take a clean rag and I am going to pull some of that back and just sort of buff that wax in. I want this to look old. If you do not like that look, you can just use a clear wax over your chalk paint to seal that in, or you could spray it with a poly coat. And then once that is fully dry, will show you how that came out plain, just as it is, without anything in it. And then I will show you that with my collection of sock darners, because I thought that that was the perfect way to display this. It had some black, and I have some blue, and I have some wooden ones, and so actually those colors really lend themselves to displaying these here. So I would love to know what you think about these 3 very basic items that have been turned into something vintage and something beautiful. And if you have anything like this in your stash that you can use as this as an inspiration for you. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you have not already, please make sure that you hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.